In this video, I'm just going to go over a simple way to maintain a ROES splash screen. So here's my test launch of ROES, and here's a pretty decent looking splash screen where I have the different catalogs linked to a thumbnail. The two at the top are my most important catalogs, so they're a larger thumbnail, and then down below that, rest of our normal products, and down at the bottom I have some small examples of less important products where they don't have a thumbnail. So all of this is code that is hosted on GitHub. So I'm going to go over here to GitHub, and I'm inside my GitHub account. I'm logged in right now, and we'll look at the whole thing here. So this is something you could go ahead and fork and copy from me and just change out the information that's in it. When we go back here and look at this, all of these images are being loaded from Unsplash. They're not my images. I would use an image of an actual metal print or a picture of a print on cardstock rather than these. I just don't want to give anybody else my images, so I'm using those. And if you go back over to GitHub, the main thing that's driving all of this is this data file. If I open up this data file, actually that was the data folder. The data file is called products.yaml. You can see that there's 4 things contained in each product: the title, the icon URL. I have this going to Unsplash, and then I figured out a fancy way to give a random image. And then the URL, this is the URL to the actual product you want to link to inside of ROES. And then there's a description that shows up below the title. So if we go back over here to ROES, you can see that's the title, that's the description. This is the thumbnail, and if I click it, this is the URL that's the 4th item in the data file. This data file is being sucked in by the index file that's here. And I did hard code the top 2. These ones up here that are the larger ones, I got lazy and just did those so that they're hard coded in the HTML here at the top. The data file is driving everything else below this. This one section here controls all of these middle 2 rows of icons, the ones with the thumbnail and the title and the details. And then this section down here is for the extra ones that don't have an image. So this code you don't ever have to change. It's just pulling in the information from the data file, which is over here. And if you go look at this, all it is those 4 things. You can add as many as these. You can add as many of these in here as you want. And then down at the bottom, you can see these 4 here don't have an icon, and the code on the index file is checking to see if an icon exists. If it does the one with the icon. If it doesn't, it does it without the icon. And if you want to edit this, I can edit this all in the browser and change this. So if I wanted to, let's come up with another product here. When you do this, the indentation is very important. We'll title this, we're just going to call it test prints. Big and cheap, we'll call it big and expensive. And now I'm going to go ahead and commit the changes. As soon as I click commit the changes, GitHub is going to re-render this site. And I'll go ahead and click this link, and it should load up here. And it might take a minute or 2 for this to happen. And so now you can see this extra one. Yeah, there it is. Test prints right there. It was in the middle, so it didn't show up at the bottom. I was expecting it to see it there. So now you can see it's made an extra one there. If I go back to my ROES launch and I reload the page, you can see it right there. It just automatically showed up inside of ROES. All you had to do was edit a simple file with 4 or maybe 3 different line items. You'd have to host the images someplace. That icon took a while to show up. So these icons are just pulling in from Unsplash, and that's so that I'm not giving away the images inside of my repo. If you decide to fork it, you would put your own in there, and as long as they're your own images, when you click reload, they should be almost instant. When I do this on my own launch, they're pretty seamless, comes up pretty quick. So if you're not familiar with what GitHub is, there'd certainly be some learning you would have to do. But basically all of the code that's in this repository in GitHub parlance is what's used to make that splash page. So down here at the bottom, There's some contact information that's just sort of random information in there. That's actually in this repository. It's all here in this config file. And if you scroll down at the bottom, here's the section for the contact stuff that's in the footer. And that's, you could just edit this to put your information in there. And this just gets sucked into the index page again. It's a little bit complicated. It's using Jekyll, if you know anything about Jekyll. But you could just edit those things once, and then the data file itself is all you need going forward. So there you go. That's all there is to it.